So I was wondering how I wanted to format this video. Do I go through the entire thing? Do I just go over a few different stories? Honestly, I could probably do multiple videos on this topic, and the topic is my high school days, which did not go very well. Now, just for some backstory, when it comes to, high school, middle school, elementary school, the way our school system was set up, you had preschool, you had kindergarten, and then you had first through sixth grade. That was all at one building. That was an elementary school. You had seventh and eighth grade at a middle school, and then you had high school, which was ninth through 12th. You had ninth grade freshman, 10th grade sophomore, 11th grade junior, 12th grade senior. That's just how it was set up. And in elementary school, it is very sad, but I honestly peaked in elementary school. I had a really good friend group, especially in fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. Seventh and eighth grade in middle school, I still had a really solid friend group. And then we went into ninth grade, and how our school system worked, there were two big middle schools, and then they combined them both into one massive high school. We probably had like 600 or 700 kids in our graduating class in high school. The only reason I know that is because at the end of the year, they give you, where you finished in your class in terms of how good was your grade point average and things like that. I was like 500 out of 600 kids or something. I like averaged maybe a C minus. I didn't fail a single class though. That's funny. I should have, and we'll get to that in a second. But when it comes to my high school experience, so I go in as a freshman. I have a few friends. I think one of the main issues early on was not playing any sports. I had played sports in 7th and 8th grade, but it was more travel stuff. It was never with high school or middle school teams. It was all different type of stuff. And then in ninth grade, I just stopped completely. I used to get really bad anxiety from sports, so I just didn't want to play them. And I did have a friend group in ninth grade, but it really tailed off. I was not motivated. This is going to be kind of a thing where it's hard to separate freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Senior's easier to separate because it was just a complete shit show. I wasn't there half the time. But like freshman and sophomore, I was totally disassociated. I did not want to talk to people. I remember I'd always wear the same sweatshirt throughout high school. And what I would do is, this was before the little AirPods or whatever, so you had to actually have, the wired headphones. I would take the little wires in between my shirt and my sweatshirt and kind of just bring them up and prop them out and kind of have both my little headphones poking up out from my sweatshirt. What was that one movie where the dude had, I don't know, some funny movie that did, I forgot who the actor was. It was a big time actor. He had balls on his chin. I don't remember that movie. It was a weird movie, but it kind of reminded me of that. But that's what I used to do. And then I would just pop my headphones in pretty much all the time when I was a sophomore and a junior. But yeah, freshman year, I had a decent friend group. I had, standard, normal lunch. I will say the first time I really realized I was a loser in high school, though, was a freshman year, 5th period class. Now, this was probably the class right before lunch. And it was so funny now looking back on it. I do remember this. This would have been late 2014 because I entered high school in August of 2014. And just looking back on high school, it's so fucking easy, guys. Like, when you realize that when you're an adult, just how easy high school was. But this art class, it's just complete bullshit. All you have to do is try, you get an A. I probably ended up getting a B, I think, or like a B+. I do remember from that art class, my mom got so pissed at me one time. I wasn't allowed to watch football one weekend. This was my freshman year, really early into it. It was like week 3 or week 4, and I had to freaking work on this art project in my room on the floor, and I had to cut up all these little pieces and glue them together. It's like you had to, it was just a weird thing, and she grounded me a bunch, or not grounded me, but took away my television from my room, because I would always start off the quarters with like an F, and I would try and explain to her that, no, the only reason I have an F, because the parents would be able to check your report card, like your updated report card. So let's say the second quarter starts, and it shows you have an F in science, and then I try and tell her, no, it's just because I got 0 out of 5, I didn't turn in a homework assignment. If I get 20 out of 20 on the next thing, my total points are going to be 20 out of 25, so I'm going to have a B, and it's going to bring it up. But she never really understood that. So she just took a bunch of crap away from me. But I mean, honestly, I was a terrible student. She was very lenient compared to, especially later when I started skipping all the time. But yeah, the first moment I realized I was a loser, Because back when I was a freshman, I had again, like, I was able to eat lunch with other people. It was a decent friend group, whatever. I honestly, when I was a freshman, because I was so disassociated and I was just so antisocial, I just almost not really abandoned my friend group, but I just started going to the library during lunch, even though I could have sat with people and I had friends, but I just didn't do it because I was so antisocial. I would go to the library and just go on the computer and, I mean, just look at cryptocurrency and stuff. It's just complete crap. But either way, let's get back. This is tough because this is going to take a while. Let's get back to the art story. So I'm in art class, and this is the setup. So there's two big tables. You guys know art. You can sit wherever you want. If you're a popular kid, if you like school, it's your dream. You sit with your friends, you chat, you do easy art. It's a laid back, right before your lunch period. It's beautiful. Well, I had really no one in that class, and it was so funny how the seats were arranged. So there were two big tables, and at my table, it was just two other people, I think. It might have been another person that I forget, or he might have came and then left, but it was me, this dude who I believe was in my grade, or was he one grade in front of me? He might have been a sophomore, but you could tell he wasn't special needs or anything like that, but he was like, there was something slightly off. That's all I'm going to say. There was something slightly off. He was kind of like a puppy dog. Like, you could tell it's like, all right, man, you're a good guy, whatever. But there was just something slightly off with him. Obviously, we were not the cool table. And then the other person, I think it was a transgender. I didn't know at the time. But I mean, back in 2014, this is like a trailblazer. This was before the trans movement really got going. So at this one table, it's me, the puppy dog, and the trans trailblazer, and then the other table, there's like 8 popular kids. And you could just, it was just like the most obvious thing ever. And then there were like 2 tables up front. I believe those were like upperclassmen or something, so we really didn't, relate to them. If you're a freshman and there's juniors and seniors, you're not going to really relate to them. But the other table was a bunch of freshmen that I had known from middle school or whatever, or I remember seeing them or something. And it was just the most obvious contrast, just realizing it. I didn't even realize it at the time. Well, I guess subconsciously I realized it, but yeah, that art class was a really good indication of my high school experience. And then going into sophomore, junior years, I just pretty much lost all my friends, I'll be honest. I really don't remember a ton from my sophomore year. I mean, I can go through some of the classes. I'll just go through 2 of the classes. Oh, this is a great thing. So we can talk about Spanish class. Now, when I went into 9th grade, my mom told me, listen, you have to take Spanish class because it's going to look good on your resume for colleges. Evidently, that ended up not mattering. I didn't step a single day on any college campus, but so I decided to do freshman level Spanish, and oh my god, I am fucking horrible at Spanish. So I go in there, and we have this cute, old, wholesome teacher for 3 days, and then this wannabe... He was a Mexican dude. His name was Perez. But you know how those like Mexican guys, they try and act American, they try and act white, but they also want to be gangster. It was like a combination. And he was only like 28, 29 years old. He would try and flex on us and say that he also works at an airport, so he gets free flights and stuff. It was just really weird. But his teaching style, both of the Spanish teachers I hated their teaching style. They would call on you even if you didn't have your hand raised. Brother, I don't know. Por favor, please stop calling on me. Adios. Please stop. I don't know the answer to it, but they would do that, and it's just really embarrassing. So that Spanish class was horrible, but if that's not bad enough, my sophomore year, I also took Spanish, and it was even worse. It got so bad when I was taking my second year in Spanish, I think, Spanish 2? Now, I did pass Spanish 1 because you literally have to be... I was going to say mentally retarded. You can't use that word anymore. You have to be very dumb not to pass high school classes. They will just say, at a certain point, teachers are just like, all right, this would look bad on my resume if you don't pass, so I'm just gonna give you the answers. Like, honestly, that's what starts to happen, to be completely honest, with high school. But going into my sophomore year, so what ended up happening midway through the year, or like into the winter, so that would have been like 3/4 of the way through the year, I legitimately started going to the bathroom and taking like 15 to 20 minute bathroom breaks. And these dudes who were jocks, they never bullied me. They were actually pretty nice. I'm surprised they didn't. They were nice to me, but they always used to joke with me because I would take like 15, 20-minute bathroom breaks, and it got so bad. My teacher, my sophomore year, my Spanish teacher, this was a woman, she was like, listen, you got to stop going to the bathroom. All right, there's no more bathroom breaks because I would take 15 to 20 minutes. I would actually go because our school had, I think they had like a telephone pole installed or something. So the one... Like there was a telephone pole installed near our school after my freshman year. So during my sophomore year, we had really upgraded Wi-Fi or wireless connection in like the 600 hall or the science hall. I would walk all the way across the building. We have a big high school. All the way across the building, go into the science hall bathroom during my Spanish class, and I would just sit in there, camp out, go on Twitter, just enjoy my time, and that's really what I would do for Spanish. But Spanish was terrible. I think I probably got a C in that class. Again, it's very hard to fail those classes, but I definitely knew when I was a sophomore that things were starting to go really bad. I would have to go to the library every day. I had to just skip lunch because I have no one to sit with. I mean, what do you do? Do you just sit with no one? You're a fucking loser. You can cope and go to the library and act like you're doing something or whatever, so I would do that. When I would get lunch, I'd have to spend hours in the bathroom sometime just to escape sitting by myself at lunch. Oh, it was terrible. And then really when it comes to me being bullied, I really didn't get bullied. I think probably one of the main reasons is just, my brother was at my high school as well. He was a year older than me, and he was a lot more popular than I was. He was respected, and I'm guessing that's one of the reasons why really no one picked on me, but maybe there wasn't much bullying going on at our school. I don't know. I actually have a very weird story. This does not really have anything to do with like me struggling in high school, but I remember I was either a freshman or a sophomore, and my first period class was study hall, which is fucking hilarious because you would think, oh, sweet, if your first period class is study hall, you can stay home and sleep. Well, not if you're a freshman, because you don't have a car or anything like that. You could skip study hall. Well, I always went to study hall, and I remember I was in study hall one morning. Our school started, oh, that's another horrible thing. Oh my God, waiting for the bus at 6:40 a.m. You're walking through Soviet era snow. Oh, it's terrible. You got like 40-degree rain coming down, and it's pitch black out in the winter. We would have a class. I remember when I was a senior, we had a class. It was a pottery class in first period. And it would be dark the entire class just because our school started so early. Now it's good because, you get out at like, what was it? What time did we get out? 2:40, 2:45, I think. And I would get home by 3:15, and I had a method. I would get home. You're tired because you're waking up. You're a growing boy. You're waking up at like 6:40 every day to go to school. I get home. I masturbate. I immediately fall asleep. I had that exact same routine throughout pretty much all my high school. Well, actually, not when I was a senior. When I was a senior, it became a shit show because I was able to get out a lot earlier, and I started skipping just so many different classes, and I still ended up passing everything. I know I'm yo-yoing in between. This is probably going to have to be a multi-part thing. I'm trying to remember what I was trying to get at. Oh yes, the B. So I was in study hall, and it was like 7:15 in the morning, whatever, and I noticed something in my hair. I went to just feel the back of my head, and I noticed something, and it felt like either a giant piece of dandruff or a crumb. And there's like something satisfying about pulling like a giant piece of dandruff out of your hair. This was a mega piece, or it was like some crumb. So instead of me like flicking it out, I tried to grab it and like actually get a grip onto it because I don't know, it was just satisfying. Like I wanted to just grab it and see how big this piece of dandruff was. It was a fucking bee. So I grabbed the thing I couldn't even see it because it was the back of my head in my hair. And it stung me, and no one else even realized it, but that was just kind of a weird story that ended up happening to me, where I literally got stung in my study hall by a bee that was stuck in my hair, and it stung my hand because I was trying to grasp it because it was a satisfying thing for me to pull a giant piece of a crumb or dandruff out of my head. And then when I became a senior, so basically my freshman year, it was okay, it was whatever. Sophomore year, it's shit. Junior year is shit. By the time I'm a senior, I'm completely done. I never wanted to CTE. That came after, honestly. Maybe a little bit in between junior and senior year. But basically what happened when you go into your senior year, you can rearrange your schedule. And I actually had to have my schedule rearranged. So my schedule was the first 5 periods, it was all just classes, whatever. So I rearranged my schedule to make the 6th period lunch, 7th period study hall, 8th period early release. Bada bing, bada boom. I'm out after 5th period. I completely skip the study hall. I skip lunch. I skip the early, well, you can leave. That's why there's early release. But yeah, dude, it was so amazing. But of course, that wasn't enough. So what ended up happening is I would start skipping 5th period as well because I wanted to get out even earlier. I would be home at 10 a.m. Oh, I've got a story when I was a junior as well. So I started driving finally. I'm not going to say I was a late bloomer to driving, but I don't know if you guys have this culture at your high school. Everyone was like they were obsessed with getting their license. And listen, I understand if you've got a friend group and stuff and you want to, that makes sense. But for me, it really didn't matter. It was inconsequential for a while. But I ended up getting my license maybe like midway through when I was 16 years old. So it wasn't like, because we had kids where they'd be like 15 and a half and you get to take your temps or whatever. And then the day you turn 16, you know, these girls are going out getting their, you know, tests or whatever to get their license. It wasn't like that for me. But I did end up getting my license fairly early, you know, midway through when I was 16. And I started driving when I was a junior later in the year. And I did this a few times where I would drive myself to school. Normally my brother took me to school, but later in the year when I was a junior, he was a senior, I was a junior, I started driving myself. And I realized you only had to go to 2nd period if you were not in 2nd period, because that was the attendance period. If you were not in 2nd period, they would actually call your parents. But if all you had to do was show up to the 2nd period and your parents don't know anything, because that's the attendance thing. So what I would do is I would go to school. Let me just say as a junior and then as a senior. As a junior, I would go to school. I would go to 1st and 2nd period, and I did this multiple times. I would leave. It's like 9 a.m. on a Monday in mid-March. Like I would leave at 9 a.m. I would go to Panera Bread. I would get 2 cinnamon rolls. I would go home. I would heat them up, and I'd be in my bed at 10 a.m. with cinnamon rolls. Oh, and I'd also get chocolate milk as well. I'd get this gas station chocolate milk. This is terrible for you, obviously, but this is what I used to do. And it's like a random-ass Tuesday in mid-March at 10 a.m. I got cinnamon rolls chilling in my bed. My mom thinks I'm at school the whole day. It's hilarious. It was amazing. I didn't do it too many times to where she found out. I was smart with it. And then when I was a senior, it's a complete shit show to where, I mean, one class, I think I skipped 30 or 35 times. I still passed all my classes and everything like that. But just in general, just completely terrible. I'm trying to remember. There was a story. It's a very frustrating story because I was actually being smart and I ended up getting into the only car crash I've ever gotten into. It was a single car crash. God himself could not have saved the crash from happening. It was the most ridiculous terrain. I was dealing with literal snow accumulation on top of ice. Yes, I was skipping school, but I was trying to turn into my street. This is at like 10 a.m. I was a senior, so it's whatever. I was just skipping 1 period early that day, and there was this giant-ass garbage truck. As I was coming to turn onto my street, I was turning from a main road to a side street, and I said, listen, I want to be safe about it, so I'm not going to turn here because there's this giant-ass truck. What if I veer off and nail the garbage truck? So I just go straight, and I was going to do a loop around a neighborhood, come back down, and go into my street and just go on with my day. I had a big cryptocurrency transaction. La-di-da-di-da, what are you gonna do? So I go into a development to cut through back to my street, and on a turn, I freaking nail a curb, and it was a hard curb. It was like a 90-degree curb. It wasn't a forgiving curb to where if you nail it with your tire, you'll go up and actually over. If it was a rounded curb, I don't think my tire would have done this, but my tire literally turned 90 degrees. And it was horrible. I was skipping school, so do I call my mom? Yes, I ended up calling my mom, and she was pissed off, and she's like, she actually came during her lunch break because she's a teacher. She came during her lunch break. She was pissed off, obviously. We got a tow truck. The dude towed me back to, in his tow truck, he took me back to my house. I was only like a minute away from it. And that ended up costing me only $500. The entire thing, I think, was $1,200, but because of insurance, it got brought down to $500, and I did have to pay the $500. I probably paid it from my bullshit gym job, or so. I don't even remember what I paid it from, but I had like $3,000 in cryptocurrency. I thought it was a heavyweight at the time. I was like a bowler. Of course, I lost all of that probably or something. I don't even remember. But either way, guys, I could certainly go through a lot more stories when it came to high school. But yeah, I mean, I was a complete loser. There's no doubt about it. It was miserable. It was not a fun experience. Obviously, if you have a friend group in high school, I'm sure it's amazing for a lot of people. It's very fucking easy. You just get to go there. Now looking back on it, you realize how dumb and easy high school actually is. And I will say the other class that I was fucking dog shit at, and I had no business passing this class, chemistry. I just couldn't understand it. I could not understand chemistry. There is zero chance that I should have passed. Basically, what ended up happening is my teacher, and I'm guessing this is what happens with teachers. He was a cool teacher. He was a cool dude. He was in like his 40s, whatever. You could tell he was chill. And so I would start skipping the test, just not going to the class. And what you do is you go to the library, you go to the bathroom, you spend 40 minutes in the bathroom, or you go to the library, whatever. Unfortunately, the librarian started to realize I was using the library to skip, and that ended up stopping. But you just go to the bathroom and just skip the class completely. It's only like 45 minutes long or whatever. I think it was 43. And for whatever reason, I mean, I wanted to just avoid taking the test altogether because I knew I would fail. For whatever reason, I don't know if he just forgot, he just exempted me. So I didn't have to take it. It was like normally, you miss a class, you come back the next day, you take your makeup test, whatever. I just never took it. It wasn't a situation where, guys, when you get like, an exempt, it's like ... out of 43. Because the test is worth 43 points. But if it's a ... that's not a 0. That means it doesn't go against you. So I had like 3 tests where I didn't even take because I knew I would fail them. And he's like, yeah, because I think the teachers can see if there's a student that is passing every other class. If they're not passing your class, it becomes an indictment on you. So they're like, we're just going to pass this kid. Now, if the kid's a fucking idiot and he fails everything, I'm sure they don't care about failing him. But I was someone where I had passed all my classes. And I wasn't on the verge of failing chemistry, but I do remember having my grade at like a 67% or whatever it is. So I was like, listen, I'm just not showing up for these things. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Let me just go to the bathroom for 50 minutes, see what happens. And he exempted me. And he's like, yeah, I didn't even talk to him about it. He just exempted me from them. It was like 2 or 3 different tests. So, but overall, guys, that is just a little bit of an insight to my disastrous high school experience. Another thing I remember opening, I don't even know how I did it. I opened an E-Trade account in school. Actually, I'm not even sure that's maybe you can do it. I don't know. The thing that they started to do, they started restricting access to certain sites. I mean, obviously you couldn't look at like really bad stuff, but even like normal stuff, like I would try and visit sites for crypto and they would restrict them. When I became a junior and senior, they got really just, strict with that type of stuff. We used to have these horrible ass Chromebooks. I always said they probably cost like $10 each just because they're so shit. You remember the Chromebook carts and all that shit, and people would fuck them up and stuff, and they'd throw the Chromebooks at the carts and stuff. The carts would be so mangled and such a mess. And I mean, honestly, the things are pieces of shit. The Chromebooks. We didn't even actually get to keep our Chromebooks. The grades below us, they kept them and they were able to bring them home, and they were trying to flex like, oh my God, you have a Chromebook. How will we ever survive? Like, we give a shit about having a Chromebook. But yeah, guys, I mean, I could go on and on about it. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.